Welcome to the Spirit of Man, first podcast brought to you by the Red Dot Solution. I'm the host, Lewis, co-host is Sharon, and we have contributors, Ticote, Rainbow, and Sunshine. Now, this podcast is about life force energy. I do believe that we're all familiar with life force energy, called by different names: prana, chi, Q, Holy Ghost, healing energy, Reiki, quantum touch. This is all life force energy and called by different names depending on where in the world that you live. Now, let me tell you a little bit about the group. Within the group, we have yoga instructors, energy healing, sound healing, tarot cards, and the such. And me, I'm also a energy healer, a spiritual counselor. In fact, I've been doing the spiritual thing for like 52 years now. And when we talk about spirit, what we're talking about, I think everybody is probably familiar with the spirit in that we've had a spiritual event that happened in our lives, some miracle or some event that happened that we know that came from the spirit. And I break the spirit down, these events down in two ways. I'm sure it can be broken down in a lot of ways, but generally speaking, we have a spiritual event and a miracle that happens. And at the moment that it's happening, you realize that this spiritual event, it is a spiritual event. And then on the other side, a spiritual event happens, and you don't realize that it's a spiritual event until years later when you look back and say, oh, wow, that changed my life. So I like from you, and I'm going to give you some of mine now, some of the spiritual events that happen in your life. In particular, I call the knock your socks off moment. When something happens and you're like, oh, wow, it just knock your socks off. And I've had a lot of those, and I tell you, some of them I'm still looking for my socks, okay? But let me tell you about my first spiritual event, the first knock your socks off moment. It was 1973. I was in Thailand in a town called Udon. Had completed my service time in Thailand. I was discharged from the service in Bangkok. Got a passport and started working as an expat, which is basically an American who chooses to work overseas. So I was a contractor. And while I was there, I saw a motorcycle for sale. It was a nice one. One of those, those things got the extended forks and the rods, guide and stuff back here in the seat. It was great. And it was for sale. It had a phone number on it. I called the phone number, which actually went to a hotel where the guy was staying. He came down. It was an American, an expat, and this white guy. And we sat down and talked. And he said, I asked him, why was he selling it? And he said, well, he was becoming a Buddhist and he was selling all of his stuff. Now, here we go. And I listened to him. He talked. And I was really interested, and I decided that I would go out and visit the temple, which I did. And the temple was up on a hill, a high hill. You had to ride out to it and stuff. And I made one mistake. I rode the bike. I did buy the bike from the guy. I rode the bike and going up the hill, I wish I had taken my dirt bike. But I had to park the bike halfway up and then walk up the rest of the way. When you got there, they met you, no shoes. They didn't even have nothing like pads or little flip-flops or something, just barefoot. And no cameras, couldn't take any pictures. And they had a limited area about what we can see. And they told us about a class that they was having. I say us. It's actually there were some other people there. I think they drove something, I don't know. But they was having this class on meditation, and I decided I want to go. So I signed up for the class, and on class day, we met in this room, and there was 5 people. It was me, and there was another American, and one person was Thai, and there were 2 Chinese. But the room, it was set up, they had like an altar there, and the altar had this picture of some guru, and then it had flowers and fruit and stuff like that. And then this guy walks in and he's dressed up and they got this stuff around his neck and it's like, My goodness, it looked more like a ceremony than it looked like a class. But the class was like 4 hours or so. And they teach you a little history, how to relax, deep breathing, oohs and ahs, and that kind of stuff. And we would practice that. And toward the end of the class, they gave us a mantra. And a mantra is a word, it's between 1 and 3 words or so, something like that. But it is a group of words that you use to meditate on. Because you want quietness when you meditate, and the mind is just all over the place, you know. But you have something that you could focus on, and that's what the mantra is about. But when we got to the part where we were practicing with the mantra and putting everything together, and we started to practice, they set it up, okay, begin and relax and stuff like that. And I started relaxing and thinking about the mantra, and I tried to bring it deep inside, and boom, the next thing I know, I was outside of my body and I was over the place floating. I was floating over the temple, and it was just, I just couldn't believe it. And I was there, and I was lit up. I was just smiling. I wasn't afraid. And I'm thinking, I hope I don't go nowhere because I don't get here. But soon I heard the voice says, okay, everybody come back. I opened up my eyes and looked, and everybody was looking at me because I was lit up. I had a smile from ear to ear, and I said, I was up in the clouds. I was floating. And that was my first knock your socks off moment with my encounter with the Spirit. Now, I must say that years later, I realized that another moment had happened before that, a spiritual moment. And even though this knock your socks off moment was huge, this one changed my life. And let me tell you about it. Back when I was 9 years old, we was living in the projects right across from Blue Lake. And at 9, the family, we moved. My mother and father bought a new house. They had this new area that they was building. Great. And when we moved there, ours was only the second street. And it was great as people started to move in from places. It was a little bit out from town. But where it was, the school that they had was those old buildings, you know, those portable buildings. But a few years later, they built a brand new school. And the school had everything, all the stuff. And we had band and drill team and, football and basketball. We had the ROTC as well. And me, I joined the ROTC. Now, the ROTC in the new school, in the building, they had a basement. And down in the basement was a shooting range. And they had a rifle team. And I was on the rifle team. We would shoot competitions at the different schools and stuff like that. Target rifle assigned in 1968. 2 years later, I was in basic training at the shooting range, and I was waiting on a guy to me shoot. Yep. And I remember when the guy came pull up in a Jeep, he got out, the drill sergeant went and talked to him. And then they started walking toward, and right before they got there, I just continued to shoot, and I fired the target, and something happened. Something hit me in my eye. It was like the cartridge recall or something. Nothing like that had ever happened. But something hit me in my eye, and my eye was watering, and I was trying to wipe my eye when they came up behind me and started to shoot, and I couldn't hit nothing. And I heard the guy say it very distinctly. He said, "You brought me all the way out here to see this?" At the time, I didn't know that was a spiritual intervention. After that, in our basic training, they said that everybody was going to Vietnam. Half was going to infantry and half was going to artillery. But everybody was going. And I decided, because I was bright, I'd been in ROTC. I went to Texas A&M. I was in ROTC there. Gotta tell you about that. Oh, Lordy. One black guy, young black guy, in a dormitory full of, hear what I say, Texas A&M, in 1968. Anyway, I could lose it right there. But I decided that I asked the drill sergeant, I said, I'd like to go get a pass to go to the recruitment office. And he looked up at me and he knew what I was talking about. I got a pass. I went to the recruitment office. I told them that I wanted a different school. And they said, well, you had to take tests so we could decide what school and how long you would have to re-enlist. Because you had to re-enlist for 1 year or 2 years, depending on how long the school was that you chose. Usually I think people end up being cooks or something like that because they were pretty good tests. But I took the test and I did well. And he gave me a list of schools that went up. One list went up to 6 months, required a 1 year re-enlistment, and 1 year school required 2. I got a 6-month school and re-enlisted for 1 more year. So when graduation time came, or we graduated from basic training, they were giving out assignments. And most of the assignments were just moving to the other end of the base for advanced training because everybody was leaving from there and going to Vietnam. And they called out the assignments. They said, and we have one lucky guy who's going to Fort Lewis, New Jersey. That was me. To Fort Lewis, New Jersey school. It was a pretty good school. It was 6 months, and it was pretty good stuff. And toward the end of the class, the Army Security Agency people came in, and they wanted the top 5 people in the class for the Army Security Agency, and I was one of those 5 people. So I became a member of the Army Security Agency. I got a secret security clearance, and after class, I went off and worked overseas. The thing is that I came into the service as a shooter, and after that event, I was never issued a weapon again the entire 3 years that I was in service. Never issued one. In fact, the places where I work were generally up on the ground, So I think about the death that would have occurred, that I would have been involved in had that thing had not hit me in my eye. Because I could hit anything. A little bitty, big old duck, you could hit anything. So I didn't have to go through that death and destruction that I would have seen. But that's not the way faith works. Because I did go through it. I'm a registered nurse. I worked on code team for at least 7 years. I worked in the ER for 5 years. Of death gets personal too when you're toughest in the line. More. So my point is that we have choices about things that we do, but we're still doing it. We come here with something in mind to do, keeping in mind that it's not good nor bad. It simply is. So that's the after the fact moment. So it took me years and years before I started to realize that I was still seeing it. And so I became a nurse. And that's a story. Because and this is about the spirit, how it works. The school that I enrolled in, nursing school, that graduated a lot of people, 100 people a semester. They graduated from the school. And the school had only graduated one black male before. Then there was me. And let me tell you, I'm going to tell you, when I first applied for nursing school, they told me the prerequisites, and I was taking them, and I took them, and I put in when I went to put in the application, they said it was too late, that the application had to be in like 3 or 4 months before that, and I was, have to just apply for next year. So in my class, I was knowing we were studying for the bachelor stuff. Taking the bachelor's prereq while we was waiting. There was one guy in the class, and we would talk, and I was telling him about being a nurse and all of that, and he said, I should go over to the nursing school and talk to him about putting in an application. And I said, yeah. And at our next class that we had, he told me, I saw him, he said, hey, man, I got in. I said, you got in what? He said, I got in the nursing school. I said, what do you mean you got in the nursing school? Man, and he said, I went over and I talked to him, and they gave me some tests, and they said, okay, you're in. And I'm saying, they told me it was too late for applications and, that kind of stuff. So I was disappointed, but I put in an application for the next year. And I was going to a summer session in school, and at the cafeteria, uh, had lunch, and I went outside. I was smoking at that time, and there was a guy out there. He was smoking also, and we started to talk. And as we talked, I told him about what had happened at the nursing school, and he listened, and we talked, and he said, okay. He said, well, I got to go. He reached in his pocket. He took out his card. He said, if I can help you or something, he gave me his card. I looked at it. He was the president of the college. This is how the Spirit works. He was the president of the college. The next day, the nursing school called me. Folks, we're not alone. We're not alone. But it don't come knocking on your door. You got to get it. So they called me. I went over. Boom. They gave me a test. And I said, oh, you didn't pass the math part. And I'm saying, that's my best doggone subject. I do math in my head. But anyway, I didn't get in. So the next semester, I'm still taking classes for the bachelor's. The next semester, people start talking, oh, I got my letter. Oh, I got my letter. I'm in. And I didn't get anything. And I waited and waited. I didn't get nothing. Nothing saying I was accepted or not accepted, nothing. So I went over to the nursing office and went in there, and it was this nice old lady. And she was very nice. I remembered her from when I put in my application before. She was well past her retirement time, but she knew what she was doing. But I went over and I told her, and she said, I got to go talk to the director, whose office was right across from her. And I went in, and the guy says, we don't have an application for you. He said, I've looked, and he looked at us and said, we don't have no application for you. You just have to put in an application for next year. But then the Spirit rose up. And this nice little elderly white lady, she heard us talking, and she walked in the office. And she said, I remember him when he came in with his application. I gave it to you. And, you might think, how could you remember him? How many black men come into that office to apply for nursing school? Well, when she told him that, he said, okay, well, let's fill out one right now, but all the classes are full. He said, we'll just have to put you on the waiting list. I said, the waiting list? He said, yeah. I said, but I had an application in. He said, well, other people had applications too. But at any rate, a week later, I got the letter saying that I was accepted in the nursing school. And that was just the beginning. It made Texas A&M look like amateurs. The only thing that saved me, that got me through nursing school, was not my abilities. I had the ability, easily had the ability. The way there were two things that got me through nursing school. The number one was that I was a veteran. I was a veteran, and I was working for the VA. So you just couldn't dog me out. The other one was that there was a lieutenant colonel who was one of the instructors. And she was really nice to me. And she told me, and I had another instructor that they told me stuff. But this lieutenant colonel, as we get into the last semester, going to the clinicals at the hospital, where we go to the hospital and we actually take patients and stuff like that, she told me, she says, this one particular instructor, she said, whatever you do, do not get this instructor. And I thought, how can I avoid an instructor? Because they will make her my instructor. They will do that. And she said, no matter. So what I did was, clinicals were generally in the daytime, but they had one evening course. I signed up for clinicals in the evening course. And I avoided her and the other things that they had for me, But that was really something, because the graduation of that, my whole family came down. It's like 100 miles. Everybody came down to see me up there with them. During the graduation, when they called my name, and they said, and this is our VA guy. That was me. but for my family who had weathered 10 years of drug use by me. I mean, they weathered that storm, and that's a hell of a story. I got stories forever, but that was a grand adventure. But that was just the beginning, and that's the Spirit working all the time. The Spirit, and it's powerful. And I say to you now, the things that have happened to me, what the Spirit has done for me, the Spirit will do it for you. It will do it for you. And I say that through this podcast, we're going to give you practical information about how to use the energy, how to manifest it, how to pull it up. We'll talk about how to do that. Not none of these complex things you gotta read, all these books and all of that. I done read the books. I've already read them. The techniques, the different techniques. I know 50 techniques of how to do this, that, or the other. My third eye is open. My Kundalini is active. And the extraordinary things that have happened to me throughout my life, you gotta share it. You just gotta share it. Because it's real. It's real. Remember this, though. It does not come knocking on your door very often. You got to be out there trying to get it. Whatever it is, get out there and start doing it because it's there. Another spiritual thing. During my heyday, my 10-year mind lost son, I don't know what you call it. At one time, I was always striving to get somewhere. So I saw a job interview because I used to go pick up Sunday papers out of people's yards while it was still dark so that I could read the want ads and play the chessboard. You know, I like to play the chess out of the out of the newspaper. But I saw a job offering. I called them and went to my sister's house. I called and said, come out for an interview. And I said, okay. And on the day of the interview, I didn't have no money, no nothing, but I said, I'm going. I got up, I got dressed, and I walked out of the house, and I started walking down the street. And I started walking down the side of the road, cars passing by, and I'm walking. And I'm dressed decent because I'm going to an interview. And as I walked, probably about half a mile or so, a bus pulled up and it stopped. It was a city bus. And the guy says, where are you going? And I told him that I had a job interview and I was going to that interview. And he said, okay, come on, get in. He gave me a transfer. He said, you can use this transfer when you get to town to catch the other bus you need to catch to go. And I did that. And I went to the interview. It was decent. I don't think I got the job, but I did go. And after the interview, I went to the bus stop, you know, those shaded bus stops. And I just, I stood there and the bus came. And I told the guy, what I was doing and stuff. And he says, okay, get on the bus. And he gave me a transfer. See, when you get to town, you can use this transfer to go home. He said, but also while you're in town, he said, they got this place where they feed people. So I went there. And I did eat, and I took the bus home. The thing is, I left there walking. The only thing I had was intent and belief. I had intent. I knew that I was going to do it, and I took off. I say to you, he'll do it for you as well. The energy, life force energy, Holy Ghost, Chi, Prana, by whatever name, angels, guides, they're here. I'm telling you, they are so here. It is just really something. And one of the things about these entities, angels, guides, and things, is that they're here for us. They're here to help us. We need to is simply ask. Now, what I like to get from you guys, I like to hear about the spiritual event that's happened in your life. I like to hear about it. I like for you to share it with others. As others share with you. And the power that we have when we share, we're not just sharing the word, but you know what they say about the word? When we start to speak it, it turns into energy. It's vibrations. And people don't hear it, they feel it. They feel those vibrations. So we teach you, again, not complex, simple things. Now we also will be having yogurt classes are going to be starting up. We're also going to have meditation classes that's going to be starting up. I'll be doing the meditation classes, and for more advanced people who have ascension issues, or having kriyas, kundalini issues, things like that, I would be more than happy to share with you how I manage those things and see how that works out. Guys, this has been great. Our next podcast, we're going to talk about some of these knock your socks off moments that we'll hear from people. You can send them in by email. Also, we'll have the phone number up soon where you can call and leave messages. But we're going to talk about this. Again, my name is Lewis. This is podcast number 1. Podcast number 2 is coming up, where we will discuss knock your socks off spiritual moments. Thank you for being here, and we'll see you next week.